Well, hi everyone. I have an update for you on the ongoing sinkhole-related saga. I-80 near exit 34 in Wharton, New Jersey has been a real mess. They've closed both eastbound and westbound lanes to get a handle on what's going on with this sinkhole situation associated with former iron mines in the area. There's been a series of collapses of these mine shafts and perhaps other underground workings. The New Jersey DOT has been actively exploring and attempting to remediate through grouting of these void areas, and it's just a disaster for traffic there. Well, unfortunately, there's a luxury apartment complex that has 247 units. It's a 5-story building that's within a few hundred feet of these sinkholes that have developed on the eastbound lanes of I-80. And the residents reached out to me in early March expressing concern about what they noted as recent cracking or recent enlargement of existing cracks that they strongly believed was related to this recent sinkhole development within a few hundred feet of their building along I-80. Now, I've done a variety of videos on this topic, but I want to thank a channel viewer who is an expert on code enforcement and building inspection. He reached out to me with a tremendous number of resources that I'll reference here in today's video. But there's a recent inspection done that was completed on March 20th, 2025 that indicates several structural issues with the apartment complex that the owners of the apartment complex have less than 60 days to address. So I'm going to go through all those details. Now, one of the things that caught my attention about this story is when the apartment residents expressed concerns about their observations of these new cracks, the mayor of Wharton, Mayor Chegwin, came out and inspected the building and deemed it safe, that this is normal cracking. And I remember thinking at the time, well, why is he weighing on this? He's, according to his bio, former history teacher. He's been a mayor for over 20 years. That doesn't qualify him really to weigh in on potential structural issues with the building. So I'm going to play a couple of these segments. These are from stories from CBS New York. This first story aired March 4th, 2025. That's when the residents expressed concerns about what they observed as new developments of cracks throughout their apartment complex.
There's new cracks showing up every day, and you know, you can't just call all of this a coincidence.
There's a lot of cracks, the wall separating from the bottom of the floor.
I haven't slept. I'm looking for anxiety groups.
We're reaching out to the Avalon corporate company and no one's giving us answers. So it makes us very anxiety stricken every single night. We don't know if we're going to go to bed and not wake up.
We tried to get comment at the Avalon Apartments office.
We're trying to get comment on the concerns of the residents here.
Okay. I can take your information and have our team get back to you.
The residents were concerned about this building here.
Are they safe?
Yes, they are.
Wharton's mayor says he's been in touch with the apartment building.
A lot of times we all have cracks and stuff in our house also when settling. So the building is over 10 years old.
Notice that the mayor doesn't reference any engineering studies or reports or opinion of experts. He just says, hey, the building's fine. And he has no business weighing in on engineering and construction matters if he's not qualified to do so. And unfortunately, that is a far too prevalent tendency that I've noticed in various stories that I've covered, is that there's really no accountability for politicians making statements that they're not qualified to make. Unlike engineers, engineers are very much held responsible for what they say on technical matters. So it's an interesting situation. Now, this next story aired March 19th, 2025.
Residents of Avalon Apartments, which sit along I-80, have expressed their own concerns about cracks in their building.
I saw a new one on the ramp in the parking garage next to a present one that was already there.
The mayor told us those residents should be getting a report tonight from inspectors.
There's been a structural engineer and they deemed the building to be safe.
Okay, at least he's referencing somebody there. I've asked for copies of these reports through a public records request. I have yet to receive these reports. It's my understanding there's perhaps 2 structural engineering firms that have looked at this building since the residents' complaints about cracking and other distress in early March. Again, I'm waiting for those reports. To my knowledge, though, A geotechnical engineer has not yet been brought in. I hope that's not the case. I hope they've got a geotechnical engineer that's looking at what was done to remediate the mine that's under this apartment complex, according to the mayor. Those are also records that I've sought out and have yet to receive. But apparently there was an extensive mine remediation program that was part of the development for this site prior to construction of the apartment building. So that brings me to this addendum inspection report. So an addendum report is done if there's a concern or somebody files a complaint about the condition of a building. This is obviously a multi-unit apartment complex, so it falls under the jurisdiction of the State of New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Division of Codes and Standards, Bureau of Housing Inspection. And they performed this inspection on March 17th, 2025. It looks like they issued the report on March 20th, 2025. And unfortunately, they note several deficiencies, which they note as being life safety related. Now, these reports are available through the links on the New Jersey housing website. You click this link here, BHI Property Database for the Open Public Records Act, OPRA purposes. And apparently the state of New Jersey made their inspections more robust in the wake of the collapse of Surfside Condominium Tower, South Tower in Miami, Florida area, which was devastating, killed 93 people. It says, in the wake of the tragic building collapse in Miami Beach, Florida, the division recognizes the rise in concern regarding structural issues. To help in understanding what some structural issues may be, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, recognizes the following to be structural issues. Visual physical damage to the designated load-bearing portions of a building that could cause failure of such load-bearing portions that affects their load-bearing functions to the extent that the building could become unsafe. Load-bearing components for the purposes of defining a structural issue are defined as follows. Footing and foundation systems, beams, girders, lintels, columns, load-bearing walls and partitions, roof framing systems, floor systems, including basement slabs and buildings constructed in designated areas containing expansive or collapsible soils, damage in the following non-load-bearing portions of the building, and so on. They've got a mechanism to check these issues out. So going back to this inspection report that was issued March 20th, 2025, I'm recording this video on April 1st, 2025. And you can see here, they've cited several violations in their inspection report to the owners of this apartment complex. So let's look at this first violation, which is indicated as a life safety violation, and they're required to provide engineering report for load-bearing structural issue. And the note here is parking garage structure and substrate, all levels, including but not limited to all levels at the column north side of rear lower garage door adjacent to fenced storage across from driveway depression, and cracked concrete at outside edge barriers, all 7 levels near lobby for 2 elevators / mailroom. Then we've got another one here. Common hallway floors, all levels where concrete slab moves under carpet or separates from baseboard. There's another one. Hallway, reoccurring cracks on all levels at walls near these locations, these units, despite frequent repair. So that's an indication that they've had repeated episodes of cracking and repair and redevelopment of cracking, which is a worrisome, or can be a worrisome situation. There's a note here about the foundation, hallway, parking garage concrete, several violations here. And for some reason, they gave them 2 months to address these issues prior to the state performing a reinspection. Now let's contrast that inspection report to the previous normal inspection, this cyclic inspection report that was done in September 2022. To the extent that there were life safety issues, they were related to lack of functioning carbon monoxide detectors, which is important because there's a multi-story parking garage attached to these units, or attached to the common areas that house all these units. Issues with non-functioning fire detection system in unit after unit after unit. Just have pages of these violations that were later corrected. And I talked with this code enforcement expert, and he indicated that his takeaway when you see a report noting such violations, that it can be an indication of lack of oversight or lack of prioritization of life safety issues. I mean, it's simply not acceptable to have an apartment complex of hundreds of units where many of them have non-functioning detectors. So that's a concerning development. That's an about face in terms of this recent inspection report relative to what the mayor of Wharton was assuring everybody that, hey, there's nothing to see here, everything's fine. There's normal cracking with any building, move along. So I sent him an email yesterday, well, actually earlier today. I said, Dear Mayor, I'm doing a follow-up story related to the I-80 sinkholes and concerns voiced by some residents of the Avalon apartment complex in Wharton, New Jersey. I have been provided an addendum inspection report for this apartment complex that was recently performed for this building at 111 East Dewey Avenue, where several life safety code violations are cited, which are related to observed building cracks that were reported by some residents of the Avalon. And keep in mind, none of these cracks were noted in the 2022 report. Considering that you have made statements to the media since early March 2025 that there are no safety concerns for this building, would you like to revise or recant such statements? If so, please let me know and I'll reference your response in my pending video update. And his response to me was, good morning, I'm not familiar with an addendum inspection report for this building. Could you please provide me with a copy of what you're referring to? Thank you. Mayor Chegwin. Well, I replied, please refer to the attached. I gave it to him. Your code department should be able to retrieve these publicly available records that are posted online. I look forward to your response. Regards, Casey. So he has a code department. They don't have jurisdiction over these multi-unit apartment complexes. They can opt out. Or I guess the default is the cities aren't responsible. They can opt in and do the inspections if they wanted to. But they have a codes enforcement department. I'm sure they're able to look up these inspection reports. If somebody said, hey, there's an addendum report for the Avalon apartment building, I would think the mayor could find it and not rely on me to provide it to him. So what I think needs to happen, I would have hoped it already has happened, and maybe it has, is that you get a geotechnical engineer that evaluates the overall situation. What is going on with the I-80 sinkholes? How does the development or recent development of these sinkholes relate, if at all, to the mine shafts that were existing at the Avalon apartment complex, some of which apparently were remediated? Was that remediation adequate? When has the movement occurred that caused this cracking? How much movement or new movement has occurred in the last few weeks since the development of these collapsed mine shafts on I-80? Has anyone installed crack monitors? That's a pretty simple tool to use. It costs like 20 bucks. You epoxy them to either side of a crack, and it's got a grid on it, and you can read periodically if there's a change in the width of the crack, either closing or opening. That's very important. If you note ongoing movement or a high rate of movement, that can be very concerning. To what extent have they exposed structural elements instead of just looking at cosmetic faces for walls and floors? These are all important questions in my mind. I did a recent video about value space looking at INSAR data for this building, and that was done through mid-March 2025, that analysis, and showed overall that the building's stable, at least at the roof line. And I also mentioned in that video, value space can do these analysis either initially or periodic intervals to document potential changes in, say, settlement of a structure or a ground. And I think it would be very important to include such a tool in the evaluation of this building. Just because it's gotten an indication of no movement up through mid-March doesn't mean that additional movement can't occur, or that eventually, if there is such movement, express itself at the roof line. So these satellite overflights occur every 12 days. So for a situation like this, I think it'd be worthwhile to spend $1,300 every couple of weeks if you've got an apartment complex with 247 units to supplement the data that you're getting from an on-site geotechnical engineering evaluation that includes crack monitors, perhaps vibration monitors, as well as an analysis of the overall site conditions. It's a very valuable tool in my mind, so that you could assess every 2 weeks or 12 days, is there a change in the elevations of the roof line or the surrounding ground around the apartment complex? So again, I've got a link in the description if you're interested in reaching out to value space for your own project needs. Again, I would encourage people in this area of New Jersey to strongly look at this methodology as a supplement to their investigations of the potential for sinkhole development in this area. So again, I want to thank the channel member. He's not looking for any recognition or anything like that, but he reached out to me, provided these resources. He's taught me a lot. I'm not a codes enforcement or inspection expert, but I've got a lot of insight now as a result of his work. You know, and that's one of the things I really love about this channel is I don't have all the answers. I gather as much information as I can about a story or a situation. I present it. I get feedback from the viewers. Many viewers reach out to me with additional information, like the residents of the apartment complex or this code enforcement expert. And it's awesome. I mean, I'm learning a lot, and it makes the videos much better with the content. So again, thank you to all of you who contributed in that fashion. I also want to thank those of you who have contributed to buy me a coffee. That's a great way to help me offset my research and production costs. Public records requests often cost money and that sort of thing. I also want to thank those of you who have joined as channel members, and certainly those of you who provided super thanks. So stay tuned. I'm going to stay on this video topic for several more episodes, I think, until this situation is resolved. So thanks very much, everyone.